So, dear learners, today we are going to discuss the basic concepts to understand human rights. Liberty, we have already discussed in our previous classes. Today, we are going to deal with equality. The three important concepts that we have included in the syllabus are liberty, equality, and justice. When we are going to discuss equality, we all have to keep in mind that liberty, equality, and rights are interlinked. It means that when we are claiming liberty, then we cannot ignore equality. And that's why right to equality or right to freedom, all these becomes important, and you will find all these they become important, and you will find that they are there in the different constitutions that have been adopted by the countries. For example, in our own country, you have fundamental rights in the Constitution of India, as well as we have directive principles of state policy. So the rights that are there, for example, Article 14 to 18, we have right to equality in the Constitution of India. So it means rights and equality, they go together. Similarly, right to freedom, for example, that has been mentioned. You will find that the underlying principle of all the rights that have been claimed or that have been incorporated in the constitution or in the international documents, the most important principle is principle of non-discrimination, which basically emphasizes equality. So therefore, we can say that liberty, equality, and rights are interlinked. The right to liberty and equality has been the main demand of all human rights movements. So you will find that right to liberty and equality, that has been the most important demand of all human rights movement all over the world. So that is why, when the people were claiming either against the colonial rule or against the imperialist powers, they were claiming freedom at that time. The most important thing was that there was racial discrimination that was being practiced by the colonial powers or the imperialist powers. So this was the reason that they wanted equality. Liberty or freedom, freedom from the yoke of slavery, freedom from the foreign rule, and freedom from imperialist exploitation, all these things were demanded. So therefore, you will find right to liberty and equality has been the main demand of all human rights movements, all over the world. The need for recognition of the right to equality can be realized or better understood by the people who have witnessed racial discrimination, caste domination, and gender inequality. So that's why here, for example, the people of South Africa, when the apartheid regime was there, what kind of treatment was given to the black people? So those people who have faced that kind of racial discrimination, those who have, tasted the bitterness of the inequality that was being presented to them in the form of apartheid or racial discrimination, they are in a position to understand the significance of equality in a better way. Similarly, caste domination, when a hierarchy is maintained and there are some people who are considered as high-born and others are considered as low-born. So, in that hierarchical system where the low-born people or mean-born people, the so-called, if they did not have rights or the right to be given equal treatment, so these people can better understand the value of equality that has been given through the Constitution of India. Similarly, gender inequality. You see, gender inequality has been the feature of most of the societies of the world, where women were considered as inferior and a lot of duties were imposed upon them and their rights were not recognized. Their services were not appreciated. We also know that equal pay for equal wages, that were not given, and that is why you see in the 19th and 20th century, all these things were demanded. So therefore, it is rightly said that, what is the importance or the significance of equality, that can be better understood by those people who had tasted the bitterness of racial discrimination, caste domination, and gender inequality. Today, equality and non discrimination are integral components of all human rights instruments. There is no doubt in it that all human rights instruments, you see, whether it at the national level, most of the countries of the world, they have adopted the constitution and they have incorporated rights, whether they call it human rights or fundamental rights or basic rights. They have already included these provisions of human rights. And what do they say? That, the equality and non-discrimination, the equality and non-discrimination are the integral part of all those rights claimed or secured through the constitutions. Similarly, you will find that all the international treaties of human rights or the instruments of human rights developed under the aegis of the United Nations since 1945, it has been emphasized that these rights will be available to all without any discrimination on the basis of religion, caste, creed, sex, place of birth. So that is why, when we are discussing this in the 20th or the 21st century, that the equality and non-discrimination are integral components of all human rights instruments, we should remember that it was not available earlier. It was, achieved by the people after a long struggle and after a long struggle and after a lot of sacrifices. As discussed in our previous lectures, one of the earliest theories of human rights, that is the natural rights theory, provides the most powerful normative justification for the right to equality. So, in the natural rights theory, you will find right to equality has been emphasized, and it is providing most powerful justification for legitimizing the claim of people to equality. The natural rights theory, as we discussed in our previous classes, maintains that all humans are born free and equal. No. So it has been, in the natural rights theory, it has been maintained that all human beings have, they are born free and equal. So all human beings are equal according to natural rights theory. And the best exponent of the natural rights theory, John Locke, he had emphasized this point, that in the state of nature, a stage when the state had not come into existence, according to John Locke, you will find that people were enjoying equal rights, equal natural rights. And to be more specific, these equal natural rights included right to life, right to liberty, and right to property. That was available to all the people without, any kind of discrimination at all. So, this is very important to remember, that natural rights theory, when it is maintaining that human beings are born with certain inalienable human rights and they are born free and equal, that is a very important point to remember. So that is why natural rights theory is given credit for emphasizing that all human beings are born equal and free. The American Declaration of Independence 1776 proclaims, "We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal." At that time, most of in the documents, you will find that the gender-sensitive language was not used. So that is why, it has been in men has been included here. The word men has been used. But what does it mean? That when we say we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, it means, again, the same thing that was there in the natural rights theory, it is being claimed here through this proclamation, that is Proclamation of Independence or American Declaration of Independence 1776, that we hold this truth to be self-evident. It is being accepted as a truth, universal truth, that all men are created equal. Similarly, the French Declaration of 1789 maintains men are born and live free and equal in their rights. Again, you see, very, very important document. The French Revolution, we have already discussed how it played a very important role in the evolution of the concept of human rights. So, both the documents we have already mentioned in our previous lectures, that is, American Declaration of Independence and the French Declaration of 1789, that maintains men are born and live free and equal in their rights. Besides that, you will find Article 1 of the UDHR, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations on 10 December 1948, and which is also regarded as the Magna Carta of mankind. The Article 1 of this UDHR proclaims all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. You see, that all human beings are born free, first of all, so they cannot be enslaved. The moment you say that all human beings are born free, it means they cannot be enslaved. Slavery as an institution becomes something which is against the nature of man. Similarly, you'll find that they are not only born free, but also equal. All are equal. So that is why master-slave relation, if that is maintained by any society, that cannot be defended at all. In dignity and rights. So, in dignity and rights, so equal rights are there for all. And equally, all people are dignified. So, some people cannot be treated as mean-born, low-born, or the people from the lower stratum. All, these points are very, very important to understand. All these human rights instruments echo the spirit of the natural right theory, emphasizing equality. So when we are discussing, the American Declaration of Independence or French Declaration of 1789 or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we have given this example to make you understand that all these human rights instruments echo the spirit of the natural rights theory, which is emphasizing that men are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And so these things are being emphasized in these important instruments of human rights, or what we call the milestones of the journey of human rights that we have achieved today. Again, now we are coming to the meaning and definitions of, equality. So like liberty, equality is also difficult to define as it is a relative concept. First of all, what should we remember? That equality is a relative concept. It cannot be understood in the absolute sense. It is a relative concept. So since it is a relative concept, so that is why, like liberty, it becomes very, very difficult to define equality. It may sound a concept that we all are understanding. But when we are trying to explain it, it becomes difficult. What is the meaning of equality? Because it is a relative concept. So that is why circumstances, times, needs, status, diversity of situations, all are to be taken into account while defining or giving a definite meaning to equality. Harold Jalaski, he is showing his helplessness, and when he is saying no idea is more difficult to define in the whole realm of political science than equality. Important to, I quote Harold Jalaski. No idea is more difficult to define in the whole realm of political science, than equality. So equality is one of the most difficult concepts to define according to Harold Jalaski. The problem in defining equality is that the term equality is sometimes, or most of the time you can say, confused with the words like same, similar, identical, uniform, alike, etc. So the term equality is sometimes confused with the words like same, similar, identical, uniform, alike, etc. So does it equality, can we say that equality means identical treatment? Because, identical treatment will bring inequality, it will not create equality. For example, a disabled person and a healthy person cannot be compared while providing certain kind of benefits to the disabled person. Similarly, you cannot say identical treatment. For example, if there is a sports event, it doesn't mean that the men and women will compete together because equality of men and women means identical treatment. No, you have to understand that physically male are more powerful than women, and that is why the different events are organized for women and male. So that is why it is not identical treatment that in all circumstances the identical treatment should be given. Similarly, an adult and a child cannot be treated alike. So it is not like identical, alike, same, similar. These things we have to remember. So equality is not very easy to define in this sense. Stephen observes that, I quote, equality is a word so wide and vague as to be by itself almost unmeaning, unquote. You see, according to him, that it is so wide, the scope of the word, the scope of the term is so wide, so broad, that and so vague as to be by itself almost unmeaning. It doesn't convey any meaning. This is the problem. Again, keep in here, equality does not mean homogenization. In the name of equality, creating equality, we cannot go for a project of homogenization without respecting the diversity or the heterogeneity. So equality does not mean homogenization or treating all alike without considering the diversity of situations and circumstances in which humans are placed. This is a very important point to understand when we are going to define equality. Equality does not mean homogenization or treating all alike without considering the diversity of situations. The diversity of situation, first of all, we have to keep in mind, and circumstances in which humans were placed. For example, in our own country, we have the provision of reservation in the Constitution of India. And when we are discussing the provision of reservation in the Constitution of India, we have 15% reservation for the scheduled caste. We have 7.5% reservation for the scheduled tribes. We have 27% reservation for the OBC. And now 10% reservation has been included for the EWS, economically weaker section. So why this 15% reservation has been given to the scheduled caste in our country through the Constitution of India, or 7.5% to the scheduled tribe, or 27% in jobs and all to the OBC population? Does it mean that it is against the principle of equality? No, it is not against the principle of equality. Why? Because you see, scheduled caste people, they are former untouchables. They constitute what is called the historically disadvantaged groups. These people have faced discrimination for centuries, And because of that discrimination which was practiced in our own country, so that is why these people were not in a position to compete with other dominant sections of society. This is the reason that the Constitution of India, or when the framers of the Constitution of India, they were framing this Constitution, they kept in mind the historical disadvantages of the communities who have been provided with reservation, scheduled tribes people. Similarly, it was found that the OBC population that was given 27% reservation on the recommendation of Mandal Commission, it was found that their representation in the public employment, etc., was not adequate. So that is why India is a welfare state, and where the Constitution of India in the preamble itself proclaims that everybody will be given equality, equality of opportunity. So just to create that equality of opportunity, you will find that this kind of provisions were included in the Constitution of India. So that is why what we can say, that equality does not mean treating all alike without considering the diversity of situation. So some people were better placed, some people were not better placed, means they had suffered from historical disadvantages, discrimination, humiliation, marginalization, social exclusion. So this is the reason that these people have been provided with reservation, and that is for equality. Just to create equality in the society, they have been provided with reservation. Before we dwell on the meaning of equality, it is pertinent to point out that there are two kinds of inequalities. Number one, natural, and number two, conventional or inequalities created by society. This aspect is to be kept in mind, that there are two kinds of inequalities, or two aspects of inequality that we have to notice while talking about equality and inequality. So far as natural inequalities are concerned, for example, by birth there are some people who are disabled, maybe blind, deaf, dumb, lame, anything like that. So if they are not able-bodied, so that is natural inequality. There are some, similarly we can find that some people maybe, the beauty, for example, or ugliness, for example, that is not in our hands. So that is also natural. So if somebody is beautiful, or others are not, then that is natural inequality. Similarly, so the beauty, ugliness, health, disabilities, all these are natural. If these are natural, then society cannot do much so far as removing this disability or the sufferings of these people. But yes, through social action, through better policies by the state and by the society, the ill effects of these inequality, that is natural inequalities, they can be mitigated to an appreciable extent. So that is why you will find for the disabled people, we have certain policies in our own country, and that is, there is already an international convention, and the disabled people are given different treatment, preferential treatment by all the countries of the world. So, the persons with disabilities, they cannot be compared with healthy persons. So that is why, so far as the natural inequalities are concerned, we have not played any important role. We have not played any role. It may be natural. And when the natural inequalities are there, then the society as a whole, or the state as the most important institutions created by humans, can play an important role in mitigating the ill effects of the natural disadvantages that these disabled people may suffer. After this natural inequalities, we have conventional inequalities. The conventional inequalities are created by society. For example, the structural inequalities that are there in many societies, they are the creation of the society itself. For example, hierarchical caste system in our country. That is a kind of conventional inequality. So a particular kind of job assigned to the people who are earlier considered as untouchables, not allowing them to share spaces with upper caste people, that is conventional inequality. Similarly, the treatment that was given to women in our own country, the women were discriminated against, and the treatment that was given to them, this was again conventional inequality. So that is why, society can do something to remove this inequality, and that is why you see when we are talking about equality, basically equality was demanded against conventional inequalities, which is created by the society, which is created by the state. State through discriminatory treatment, for example, against certain communities can, create disadvantages for them. So that is why, when equality is claimed or when equality is demanded, that is demanded against the conventional inequalities, which is the creation of the society. Therefore, equality is construed in the context of conventional inequalities and demanded against them. So conventional inequalities, they are there. So that is why equality is demanded against conventional inequalities. We have to understand equality as a leveling process. So what is equality then? Equality in the real sense of the term implies a leveling process to end special privileges and conventional inequalities and achieve the goal of political, legal, social and economic equality. So, what is needed for creating equality? A leveling process, a continuous leveling process, that should be there to end special privileges. Some people were having special privileges in the society. Some jobs were there for them only. So, that's why what is there, that a leveling process means that to end conventional inequalities and achieve the goal of political equality, legal equality, social equality and economic equality. All these are important. So what is to be done? That state has to go for leveling process. For example, when the economic inequalities are there in the society, what the state does, state goes for leveling process through progressive taxation. The people from the higher income or more wealth are paying higher taxes. The amount are higher. So that is why the leveling process, that is important. For example, ceiling is imposed, that a person cannot have the land holding beyond a particular, ceiling that has been imposed by the government. Because, the zamindari was abolished, landlordism, feudalism, or that was abolished because that was creating inequality in the society. So that is why, the government has imposed that kind of ceiling. So it means that is also a kind of leveling process. After this, when we are discussing that, while understanding equality, we have to keep in mind the diversity of situation, first of all, under which various segments of the people or individuals are placed. And we found that equality does not mean identical treatment. It is not treating, people alike. So that is why now what is equality? Still, that we have not defined. So in the next lecture, we are going to deal with definitions of equality. And in the light of those definitions, we will try to understand what is equality, what is the real meaning of equality, and how we should try to understand equality in the present circumstances. Thank you very much today. I'm going to wind up today this, the introductory lecture on understanding equality. In the next lecture, which follows after, this lecture, we will be having, first of all, definitions of equality, then the development of equality, and then the various dimensions of equality we'll be discussing. Thank you very much.